Hello everyone, back tuning into today's second video. We're going to have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days. So today's second video, that will take us to around the 11th of October. And we're going to extend out beyond that with the extended GFS and ECM ensembles. They run to around a couple of weeks. We'll have a look at the CFS V2 for the next month, taking us through October at the end of the video, and there'll be a little look at November as well with the CFS V2 also. So just to say that the ECMWF 30-day look ahead has been released. That's looking at weather for the UK and the rest of Europe too for the next 4 weeks. So that video's first video up today. Later on this evening, we're going to have Terry Scollins' October forecast. I think that'll be quite an interesting read. Right then, so let's start off with the video. We've got 3 areas of interest at the moment. We have Hurricane Lorenzo, of course. More about that in a moment. I'll bring you up to date with all of the latest developments with Lorenzo. But we've got these 2 disturbance areas just here, these 2 yellow X's. So this one just here is disturbance 2 with a 10% chance of cyclone formation in the next 48 hours, a 10% chance in the next 5 days, a low chance. With disturbance 2. They're saying disorganised cloudiness and showers extending from the southeast of Bahamas northeastward over the western Atlantic for several hundred miles are associated with a surface trough. Any development of this system is expected to be slow to occur while it moves to the northeast at 5 to 10 miles per hour, well south and east of Bermuda. There's also this disturbance area just here, which is disturbance 1, also with 10% chance of cyclone formation in the next 2 days, 10% chance in the next 5 days. Also with this one, they say a broad area of low pressure located over the northwestern Caribbean Sea is producing an area of disorganised cloudiness and thunderstorms. Development, if any, of this system is expected to be slow to occur while it moves to west-northwest near the Yucatan Peninsula in a couple of days and across the southern Gulf of Mexico by Friday. For the moment, we don't need to worry too much about those disturbance areas. Obviously, we need to keep an eye on them, but at the moment, it doesn't look like they can do anything particularly significant at this stage. And then, of course, we have what was at one point Category 5 Hurricane Lorenzo, now a Category 2 hurricane, giving maximum sustained winds of 100 miles an hour with a central pressure of 962 millibars, moving northeastwards at 22 miles per hour. It has the Azores in its sights, just there. Those islands are the islands of the Azores. Often talk about the Azores High, but there's not going to be much of an Azores High tomorrow because Lorenzo will be powering through. So if we click on Lorenzo and go to warnings and static images, we can see what is predicted to happen with Hurricane Lorenzo. So at the moment, just there, you're going to move in that direction into certainly the northern islands of the Azores. All of those areas that are coloured red just there, they have hurricane warnings. So they're under a hurricane warning in the Azores. Probably be a Category 1 hurricane by then, but still potentially very nasty storm indeed, very devastating. And then pushing northeastwards to that sort of position by the end of Wednesday. So it's moving quite quickly. That's a saving grace, I suppose. By Thursday, out to the west of Ireland as a post-tropical feature. And that's where it is by Friday, somewhere to the northwest or the west of Scotland. Again, post-tropical area of low pressure by that point. If we have a look at the discussion, we can see the forecast winds. So at the moment, and for the next 12 hours, around 100 miles per hour. That keeps it at Category 2 status. By tomorrow, going down to Category 1, sustained winds of 90 miles per hour. And still Category 1 then up to 36 hours out. So it's going to be a Category 1 hurricane, I think, that hits the Azores. And then it goes post-tropical as the wind gusts come down as we get through to the end of the week. But still, even then, giving 60-mile-an-hour gusts just here in 72 hours' time. So 6 mile an hour gusts is going to be pretty windy, to say the least, for western and northwestern parts of the country. So significant winds on the way for western and northwestern parts of the UK. But of course, it won't be a hurricane by then, it will be a post-tropical storm. And the main hurricane risk with this is now firmly in terms of the Azores tomorrow. So we'll keep you updated on what's going to happen with Lorenzo. Actually, it will feature later on in the video. We'll be talking about it more in terms of the UK weather later in the video. Central England temperature for September is in. So this is the CET page at Gaswell. This has got every year's months of the CET here going all the way back to 1659. It's the longest and oldest consistent temperature record anywhere on Earth. Of course, the further back you go, the more unreliable it becomes. But it is a bit of a guide for what conditions were like a couple of hundred years ago or so. So we go down to the very latest, which of course is 2019, and we come along the column and we get to there, 14.3. That is Central England temperature for September 2019, 14.3. I talked about this in a video a little while ago, a few days ago. It's been quite a long time since we had a September CET in the 14s. So just to go through that again, last year we had a September CET of 13.7. 2017 we had a September CET of 13.5. 2016 had a very warm September at 16.0. 2015 was a cold September at 12.6. That's the coldest September we'd had up to 2015 since around 1993 or 94, I think. So it had to go back a very, very long time since we had such a cold September as that. Then a warm September as we got through to 2014. That was at 15.1. 2013, 13.7 about average. 2012 was a pretty cool September as well, 13.0 and very wet. 2011 at 15.1 was a very warm September. 2010 at 13.8 was about average. And then here we find our last September CT in the 14s. It was actually in 2009 at 14.2. So this September has been very, very similar in terms of CT to 2009, just 0.1 of a degree above it. Before that, we have 2008 to 2007, both in the 13s. Exceptionally hot, I say hot, September in 2006 at 16.8, just about the hottest September on record, and another really warm September before that in 2005 at 15.2. And then we get all of these Septembers in the 14s before that. So we got 2004 at 14.9, 2003 at 14.3, and 2002 at 14.4, 2000 at 14.7, and so on and on it goes backwards. So, but quite why we've had such a long run, a decade, without a September in the 14s, I'm not sure. It's just one of those quirks and things that occasionally happen with the weather. There's no particular reason for it, I don't think, because before 2009, which was the last time we had a September CT in the 14s, before that we had many September CTs in the 14s. So it's just one of those strange things that happens occasionally. But anyway, we have broken that run of Septembers that didn't have a 14 Celsius CT. This is our first September with a CT in the 14s since 2009. It's a little bit above average, not particularly so, probably around half a degree above 61 to 1990, less so compared to 81 to 2010. So these are our averages down here, about 61 to 90. So the September CT there, average is 13.6. So what's that? Around 0.6 of a degree above average. So let's say it's about half a degree above average compared to 61 to 1990. And compared to 81 to 2010, it's within half a degree of average. So when we're around half a degree of average, we say we're basically having an average month, whether that's half a degree, within half a degree above or below. If you're within 0.5 degrees of your long-term average, you're basically having an average month. So set against 61 to 1990, a little bit above average. Set against 81 to 2010, probably you would say about average, really just 0.3 of a degree above. Well, of course, we'll wait and see what October has in store. These are the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles next couple of weeks. Looking at Manchester today. So red line here is a 30-year upper air temperature average for Manchester. And we can see that although we're a little bit above average still at the moment, actually in the next few hours we're going to go colder than average. We're going to pull down quite a cold northerly wind tomorrow. It will dry things out though, so if you've had enough of the rain, things are going to dry out a little bit tomorrow. However, after that, the temperature's lifting back up again. That's associated with the remains of Hurricane Lorenzo. That's going to push northwards Thursday to Friday and lift the temperature up and probably increase the humidity a little bit as well. It is coming from the tropical Atlantic, of course. But once that gets out of the way, temperatures are on the slide again. And you have to say, this is looking like a relatively cool first half to September. This is like October, I should say. It's like the 1st of October just here. That gets us as far as we can go to the 17th of October. And I mean, pretty much throughout, it is looking a bit cooler than average, below average temperatures. There's just this tick up just here associated with the remains of Lorenzo, as I say, and possibly a bit of a lift up in the temperature around there, kind of like the 12th to the 13th of October. But other than that, really this does look like quite a cool first half to September, so October I should say. So could October be our first colder than average month? Well, it's far too early to say about that. This only gets us to the middle of the month really. And we might see some significantly warmer weather, of course, after that. And, of course, the ensemble itself could be underestimating the temperature a little bit. So it's far too early to be talking about our first cold and average month for October. But, nevertheless, it does look like on that ensemble, anyway, it is quite a cool first half of the month. Precipitation-wise, there's regular rainfall spikes coming through, so rain around today. More rain associated with the remains of Lorenzo there. Into the weekend, we've got some rain coming up, and then next week there are precipitation spikes too. There's no sort of reliable dry period of weather being signalled there through the first, let's say the first 10 days of October at least. Temperature anomalies from the 1st to the 9th of October, very close to average for Scotland and Northern England. It's a little bit cooler than average for southern parts of England, maybe ever slightly above average. It's not a big deviation either way. Notice quite a cold week coming up, though, across Scandinavia. There will be some early snowfalls. In fact, there already has been some early snowfalls across parts of Norway and Sweden in the last few hours. And we expect more of that to come, I think, over the next week. Precipitation anomalies on the 1st to the 9th of October. Overall, quite close to average. These have trended a little bit drier over the past 24 hours. For England and Wales, it's close to average. For Scotland and Northern Ireland, possibly a little bit wetter than average up there. Perhaps not quite as unsettled as it has been through the last week of September. That's how things are looking with the GFS for tomorrow then. So this is the remains of Lorenzo just here, moving through certainly the northern part of the Azores anyway. So heading through the Azores is a major significant area of low pressure. Category 1 hurricane. We're actually under this ridge of high pressure sitting to our north and pulling in some quite chilly northerly winds. Now, as we go through into Thursday, we find the remains of the Lorenzo just there, of course, post-tropical by this point, sitting to the west of Ireland. The ridge that did give us that drier, colder day on Wednesday is already starting to weaken. This area of low pressure containing the remains of Lorenzo does work itself up into quite a significant feature by the end of Thursday. So the central pressure with that looks like it's going down to around 960 millibars, something like that. Bring gale or possibly severe gale force winds to parts of Ireland, maybe western Scotland and some of these Irish sea coasts as well. Then the low pressure sort of moves in across the UK, filling out as it does so the worst of the winds affecting those western coastal areas and Ireland, but gradually things are easing in terms of wind, but probably bringing rain with it from Thursday through to Friday across the country, and of course a rather warmer and more humid feel. That low gets out of the way by Saturday, and then we're trying to build some high pressure over Scandinavia. This is something that's just been coming out in the model output recently. High pressure is building over Scandinavia. We are actually having a go at turning winds into more of an easterly, but low pressure continues to try to head in from off the Atlantic. So through the weekend, a little bit of a battle taking place between high pressure over the over Scandinavia and low pressure in the Atlantic Ocean. Into the early part of next week, the high sort of collapses, the ridge collapses with low pressure out to the northwest. That tries to allow some milder winds to push in from the southwest. And as we go towards day 10, that's how we're looking. So a little bit of a ridge from the Atlantic to Scandinavia, low pressure still out to Iceland and Greenland. Does look as though high pressure is trying to get a little bit more involved here as we go into the second week of October. How successful it is remains to be seen. Remember, this low pressure is sort of moving into the country a little bit beyond day 10, bringing back unsettled conditions, and below is gradually sort of moving southwards with time. So we finish up looking like that. A ridge is sitting to the northeast, low pressure is out to the southwest, and we're pulling up a little bit of a southerly southeasterly type wind, probably rain for southern and western parts of the country. That's how the GEM is looking. So again, we've got those northerly winds tomorrow. There's the remains of Lorenzo heading into the Azores, or that is Hurricane Lorenzo, I should say, heading into the Azores tomorrow. By Thursday, the remains of Lorenzo is pushing northwards in that sort of position. By midnight on Friday, Lorenzo is kind of like sitting over the Republic of Ireland. Again, very strong winds for Ireland, up to gale force, possibly severe gale force gusts. A band of rain and pretty breezy weather moving across the rest of the UK. Worse winds definitely, though, to the west. And when we get through to Saturday, that low pressure is then sitting over Germany, containing the remains of Lorenzo. So moving quite quickly through the UK, high pressures begin to build over Scandinavia into the rest of the weekend. The next weather systems coming in off the Atlantic. That's bringing some showery outbreaks of rain. And then early next week, we find ourselves going into more of a ridge pattern. The main ridge is over Scandinavia, but it does send a ridge down into France. That will bring drier conditions through the early part of next week. And up to day 10, actually, we keep high pressure influences with the GM, certainly to the south and the east, but out to the northwest, there's more in way of low pressure. So again, that's another model. It is shifting things more towards higher pressure, let's say, through the second week of the month. And then this is the ECMWF. Again, we've got those cold northerly winds tomorrow. There's Hurricane Category 1, Hurricane Lorenzo, heading into the Azores. By Thursday, we've got post-tropical or post-hurricane Lorenzo heading up towards the west and south of Ireland. That situation by midnight on Friday. So again, very, very significant area of low pressure just off the west coast of Ireland. Then really tight packed ice bars wrapped around that. That's probably the worst of the three models in terms of wind, I would have thought. That could probably get gusts to 80 miles an hour for the far north and west of Ireland. Maybe more than that. So pretty, very, very significant winds with the ECMWF at midnight on Friday for the extreme west of Ireland, possibly up to west of Scotland. Otherwise, there's a band of rain and breezy weather moving across the rest of the UK. Could be quite windy for us all. By the time we get through to Saturday, that low with the remains of Lorenzo clearing away to the east, allowing more of an easterly flow to start to move in on Saturday. However, the next low pressure is pushing through by Sunday, so the ECM is unsettled. As we go into next week, actually, the ECM is the most unsettled of the three models today for next week. There's no ridge of high pressure next week at all. We just continue to bring these areas of low pressure in from off the Atlantic, and that's how we look at day 10 in rather cool and unsettled west to northwesterly flow. The ECM is definitely the most unsettled of the three for next week, for the second week of October. So quite a bit of uncertainty actually from the weekend through the course of next week. These are the options are on the table within the ECM ensembles today for day 10, which gets us to the 11th of October. We have 15 members of the ECM ensembles with a ridge in the Atlantic. We're going up to our north with low pressure to the east. So they're going to be cool and showery with those 15 options. We have 11 just here with low pressure around Iceland. A ridge of high pressure is building up from the southwest, so that's trying to drive things out a bit and probably quite mild. 8, including the operational run, that is the run we're just looking at, with low pressures pretty much over the northern parts of the country. That's an unsettled option, as we saw within the ECM operational run today. Another 8 with high pressure out to our west northwest, low pressures to our east. They're cool, probably drying out, but certainly cool with winds coming in from the north probably. Yet another 8 with a ridge sort of to our west southwest, so a lot of options actually for day 10, a lot of uncertainty. And then 1 with a very significant northern blocking area of high pressure and a deep area of low pressure, deep trough underneath it, with quite a strong westerly wind. I think if you take all those together, we probably do see a signal here towards higher pressure, not necessarily high, but higher pressure by day 10, 11th of October. But there is a minority option which does include the operational run, but is still very unsettled even up to day 10. In 2 weeks' time, these are the options we've got. 15 with high pressure in the Atlantic going up to Greenland. Low pressure over to the east of the country, they're cool and unsettled. 11 with blocking area of high pressure between Scandinavia and Greenland. They're a drier option, but they'd be quite cold, I would have thought, bringing winds from the east or maybe northeast. Wouldn't rule out chance of some frost with those. 10 with a ridge over the top of the country. 8 with high pressure just to our west southwest, a trough in over Scandinavia. They'll be bringing in the winds from a northwesterly direction. And then 7 with high pressure pretty much centred over top of the UK. Maybe a little bit of an easterly drift. So again, by the time you get through to the middle of October, trend does seem to be towards high pressure. But not necessarily a particularly warm area of high pressure. In fact, depending on the position, the exact origins of the air, could be quite cold even into the middle part of the month. These are the 500 millibar height anomalies from the CFS V2 broken down into weekly periods. The first weekly period will take us from the 10th, from the 1st, I should say, to the 7th of October. The coming week has above average heights to our southwest, a strong blocking area of high pressure over Greenland, and then low pressures coming in from the Atlantic into the UK and Northern Europe, looking unsettled for the week ahead. We go through to week 2, which of course is the 8th to the 14th of October, with below average heights out to the northwest, low pressure to the north and northwest, then high pressure down to our southwest with above average heights there, bringing up perhaps a slightly warmer southwesterly wind, but still pretty unsettled, especially so for northern parts of the country. Week 3 is the 15th to the 21st of October, below average heights, again out to northwest, above average heights to our south, but also to our east too to some degree. Probably still quite unsettled, but if anything, the jet stream is lifting northwards a bit there, so for southern and eastern parts of the country, probably settling down. By the time you get through to week 4, which is the 22nd, 28th of October, we're under a big ridge of high pressure then. So the trend with the CFS today is to move us towards anticyclonic and drier conditions as October progresses. Now, if we looked at the temperature anomaly with that, which we're not going to, but if we did, it would show significantly warmer than average, because whenever there's any sort of area of high pressure around the UK, this one will always show potentially going warmer than average. But it's not that straightforward by the time you get through to the end of October. So, I mean, the position of the ridge is sort of over and to the east-northeast of us, which means there is a drift of air coming in from the continent, and it greatly depends whether the air is originating from south of east, from down here. If it is, then it can still be quite warm at the end of October. If the air is originating from north of east, though, from up here, coming around and into the ridge, then could be actually be quite cold with a risk of increasing night frost. But the trend is definitely with the CFS today towards high pressure or higher pressure, increasingly high pressure, I suppose, as October progresses. And then, as it's the first day of October, obviously we can have a quick look at November now on the monthlies. So this is how the 700 millibar height anomaly is looking with the CFS for November. These change day by day, so it could look very different tomorrow. But today it's placing an area of above average heights out in the Atlantic, a rather large mid-Atlantic ridge with a trough of below average heights through Scandinavia and into many central parts of Europe. That would leave us bringing in the wind from kind of a northerly direction, and it could well give early winter conditions to northern Europe. So for Scandinavia, that could be quite a wintry type month, early wintry month, and Baltic states could be quite wintry as well. Maybe in some central parts of Europe, quite wintry. For us in the UK, we would have modification from the Atlantic due to the position of the ridge, so our flow will probably be sort of northwesterly. It could be quite chilly at times, though. It's one of those months where if the wind tilts westerly, then it's going to be relatively mild. If the wind was to tilt northerly, or northeasterly, then it could be quite cold. But anyway, quite an interesting looking 700 millibar height anomaly for November with the CFS monthly stay. But do bear in mind, these change day by day. Every day looks a little bit different. So tomorrow probably be showing something quite significantly different. Right then, so that's it for your videos for today. We've got Terry's Gold's October forecast coming up tonight, and then tomorrow 5-day forecast and week 10-day video update as well. We'll probably start tomorrow though with the Gaz Weather's October month ahead forecast. That's all for now though, and thanks for watching.